birthday, Abraham Lincoln. Welcome one and all to another presidential birthday toast. This one is a big one, folks. The toast to the President of the United States that will go down in the history books as one of the greats, Abraham Lincoln. They put his face on Mount Rushmore for a reason. So today, on the birthday of this incredible man, a man who fixed the great American mistake and set us on a path to truly live up to the words of our founding documents, Abraham Lincoln was also a man of personal temperance. He did not ever personally join any temperance movement. He just generally did not drink. So when I was thinking what would be a fitting toast to this man, in my research, I found a whiskey called Uncle Nearest 1856 Premium Tennessee Whiskey. Now, the reason I chose Uncle Nearest is because the man that this whiskey is named after had quite an interesting story. Uncle Nearest, as he was known, was a former slave who, upon being freed, worked his way up to eventually become master distiller of a product you've probably heard of. Jack Daniel's number 7 Tennessee whiskey. He was the person who actually taught the Lincoln County process to Jack Daniel himself. So he has had a tremendous impact on our world. And this is just one of those interesting little tidbits that had Lincoln not done what he did when he did it, our timeline and series of events would have been so different that a product this ubiquitous wouldn't even exist. So I thought, given all of that, given the fact that Uncle Nearest was a man who was a tremendous benefactor of the actions of Abraham Lincoln, it would be only apropos to open and try some Uncle Nearest to toast one Abraham Lincoln. Now, when I was trying to find evidence of what did he drink, when did he drink, how did he drink, the only thing that I could ever find was him occasionally having small beer, which is a beer of about less than 2% alcohol, that's generally what you drink when you're in areas where water is kind of sketchy. And in Abraham Lincoln's day, there were still some areas of the nation where water was very sketchy. And there was one instance where he ordered small beer and he actually had a few sips with the troops as well, with his Union troops. So he did occasionally imbibe, but almost never. And he actually kind of had an interesting sense of humor about it. He would have a glass of wine, he would smell it, and he'd look, but then he just set it back down in all his age, like, oh, is the president going to drink? Is the president going to drink? He rarely did. But I thought this would be apropos because also on the campaign trail for re-election, Abraham Lincoln did admit to, I may have worked in an old still up in the hills during one winter time. So he probably did have some firsthand experience with whiskey distillation, just didn't personally imbibe. One of the reasons, funny enough, when he was a bit seasick when he was coming down south to see troop movements and to generally check out on the war effort, he was getting a bit seasick, and on the way, one of the sailors said, well, Mr. Lincoln, Mr. President, why don't you try some champagne? Few things are known to settle seasickness quite like champagne. And Abraham Lincoln goes, oh, no. I've seen too many men seasick ashore from that very stuff. So he was quite dedicated to his personal temperance. But I thought, given all that, given that Abraham Lincoln is the literal chain breaker of our history, oh, that was a good pop. I figured it would be only appropriate to try the whiskey that is of the heritage of one of those people whose chains he broke. So, Uncle Nearest Premium Tennessee Whiskey, or whiskey from Tennessee, if you will. Boy, I can smell that from here. But let's give it just a quick nose. I'm going to give this a full review and a full grade in a later time because it deserves it. But I figured right now, while I've got this angelic lighting, this is the time to do our tribute to Abraham Lincoln. So give it a quick nose. Ooh, okay. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. Very sweet caramel. We'll get into that later. But folks, whatever libation you have, if it's small beer, if it's champagne, wine, whiskey of any kind, this is a day to raise it to one of the greatest presidents of these United States, one Abraham Lincoln. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Mm. Okay, that is going to be quite an interesting review. I must say, folks of the Uncle Nearest family, because the flavor profile is actually selected by descendants of Uncle Nearest. Lovely mouth-watering product. We will get to that later. But folks, we are here to raise our glass to one of the titans of American history, one of the greats, and one of the few names that will probably be remembered and taught 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years from now. One of the greats of our history, Abraham Lincoln, one of the few men who understood himself as a figure within history, which is so fascinating. If you read his writings or listen to his speeches, he seemed to very much understand that he was a man within the pedestal of history, and he stood there well. So folks, regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you're doing, this is the time to raise your glass one more time to one President Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest presidents of these United States. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Well, folks, be sure to like, share, subscribe. There's plenty more to come, and we've got President George Washington coming up on the 22nd. But folks, this is Lincoln's Day. This is his day for celebration, his day for tribute. So normally it's 2, but on this particular one, we are raising our glass a 3rd time to you, President Abraham Lincoln. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Catch you around, folks.